Morning. Today we'll be doing June 2018, paper 1 of O-Levels Biology 5090. So in question number 1, we have to distinguish between the root hair cell, and we all know that the root hair cell is a part of a plant. So the only fact thing which differentiates a plant cell from an animal cell is the cell wall, and cell wall is responsible for the rigidity which it provides to the plant, which process needs energy from respiration. Whenever you're going against the gradient, for example, in active transport or on these processes, you require energy. So A option is movement of carbon dioxide into the alveoli, B is movement of oxygen into red blood cells, and C is uptake of glucose by cells in the villi. Now this is the process which energy is uptaken in which energy is required, and the uptake of glucose helps is taken by the process of active transport. All three of the rest processes take place by diffusion. And now in question number 3, they asked that in a second experiment, what change should be done to make the liquid level rise to a level which has to be higher than X. Now we need to know that if, for example, if we were to place 0.54 moles per dm cube of sucrose in this bag, what would happen that there would be lesser water potential inside the bag and there would be more water potential outside the bag. So water would diffuse inside by the process of osmosis, and therefore more amount of liquid would be collected in this tube. Now in question number 4, as we know the lock and key model, where is the active site? The active site is always on the lock, the key is the substrate. So according to the lock and key model, the enzyme is always the lock and the key is the substrate. So the 3D structure of the enzyme always has to remain the same. So the active site is always on the enzyme, and the lock is also on the enzyme, whereas the key is on the substrate. So number 4 part answer is A. Where does translocation trans or movement of sucrose and amino acids occur? This takes place inside the phloem. You need to know that the xylem is a dead tissue and it only transports water. So all the other nutrients take place transported in the phloem. Well, now they've asked where does translocation occur. So if we carefully look, this in the correct option will be B, because C only shows guard cells where the process of respiration occurs. So in B, we have got a cross-sectional view in which both the xylem and the phloem are represented. This xylem is the inner portion and the phloem is the outer portion. Now in question number 6, they ask which plant produces the most bubbles per minute. The most amount of bubbles will be produced by that plant which will photosynthesize the most. So the plant which will receive adequate amount of light and have a suitable temperature will have the most bubbles produced. So the answer is, in this case, it's B, because the light is closest in option number B. And now in question number 7, what do tubes X, Y, and Z contain? Obviously, W has healthy growth, so it contains all the basic essential nutrients, whereas Z has hardly any growth. So Z I'd say it has water in it, whereas Y has poor growth and yellow leaves. The yellow leaves signify that there is an absence of chlorophyll. And we know that magnesium makes up chlorophyll, so while basically lacks magnesium ions. In question number 8, which type of molecule is used to synthesize glycogen? Glycogen is a reserve molecule, and it is made when glucose combines to make glycogen in the body, so it can be used in instances when the body runs out of fuel. So which type of molecule is used to synthesize glycogen? Yeah, so accumulation of starch in body gives rise to glycogen. Question number 9, which is most likely to cause rickets? Now, rickets is most likely due to a vitamin D deficiency. So, diet low in dairy products and eggs and little exposure to sunlight is the best combination of variables. Now, in question number 10, in which part of the alimentary canal is the structure found? This is the villi. And as we all know that the greatest amount of absorption occurs in the villi in the small intestine. And the small intestine is the ileum. In question number 11, they say that root hair cells have dash cell walls that allow them to absorb water. Cell cytoplasm has a dash water potential than soil water, so water moves by dash from the soil to the root hair cell. So the process which is occurring is osmosis as it involves water. We'd say that root hair cells have permeable cell walls that allow them to absorb water. And similarly, the definition of osmosis is that water moves from a region of higher water potential to an area of lower water potential through the process of osmosis. On question number 11, where does water evaporate? Water always evaporates through the guard to the soma. So the option would be option D, but you need to know that where does it start to evaporate from? So the correct option would be C. In question number 13, which row correctly describes the position of valve X and Y when the ventricle contracts? When the ventricle contracts, they have shown the muscular ventricle wall. So this diagram is as they've described above as well, that this is of the right side of the human heart. Now this is the atrium and this is the ventricle. There is a valve in between them to prevent the mixing of the blood. Now when the ventricle contracts, the basic in the right side of the heart, the blood is pumped up towards the lungs. So what will happen to valve X and Y respectively? This is the ventricle. When it will contract, the valve in the obviously this valve, which is valve I, this will open, and this valve X will close, and this valve X will close. So the correct option will be close and open. Yeah, B. Now in question number 14, which line shows the pressure of blood as it flows through veins before returning to the heart? We all know that in the veins, the blood pressure is low compared to the arteries. So if we compare all three of these parts, we will easily be able to know the correct answer. They say that the diagram shows the blood pressure of a person at rest as the blood leaves the heart and passes through arteries and then capillaries. Which line shows the pressure of blood as it flows through veins before returning to the heart? So it will be that of the least pressure VD. Question number 15. What could be the first organs found in the directions 1 and 2? This is a valve and it is to prevent the backflow of blood. So option 1 should be the heart and option 2 should be the brain. Now in question number 16, which chemicals are produced in anaerobic respiration by yeast cells? Yeast cells release alcohol and carbon dioxide. Question 17, we compare two people. One person is in good health and the other person has emphysema. Emphysema is an obstructive lung disease, as we all know. And the rate of oxygen, they've compared the rate of oxygen in the person's blood in the two people. So we can see that in the healthy person, the oxygen entering is 22, whereas in the person with emphysema, he is unable to intake large amount of oxygen, and thus it's only 12. So we can easily say that the person with emphysema has damaged alveoli because he is unable to intake more and more oxygen. Now, question 18, this is a simple mathematical calculation. I'll skip the calculation, but I'll tell you the concept behind it. What is the increase in the volume of air exchanged per minute after exercise compared to at rest? So you can easily be able to calculate it by multiplying the breath rate per minute with the amount of with the volume. So it's give 12 into 500 and 24 into 1000. You can clearly see that after exercise, the amount of air which it will be expired out will be far more. So you'll just subtract the difference and you'll get the answer. Which structure is the urethra? Now C is the urethra, and you need to know that both urine and the sperm are released out of it. What is the function of X? Structure X to cause capillaries to constrict to detect changes in temperature, to receive impulses from the CNS, to stimulate sweat glands to release sweat. So if you can clearly see that the structure X is closely linked to where does it go? Its nerve endings go outside and they help to receive impulses from the CNS. So the correct option will be B, to detect changes in temperature. In question number 21, which part contains receptor cells sensitive to light? This This is the optic nerve, and this is the physiological blind spot, the area in which no the light can be perceived. So, which part contains receptor cells sensitive to light? Now, A is simply the lens, and the lens is only an elastic thing. The part number D is the ciliary and iris muscles, which help to either relax or contract the lens. So, option A and D can be ruled out in these options. Answer question number 22. Which part of the brain is concerned with thinking and making decisions? It's the function of the cerebral cortex. A is the answer, and it is the largest portion, as you can see above as well. Now, they say that in diabetes, glucose appears in the urine. How does insulin prevent this? Insulin, what is the function of insulin? Insulin converts glucose into glycogen. So it is increasing the amount of water in the urine. No, that's wrong. Increasing the uptake of glucose into body cells. Yes, this is the answer. Now, in question number 24, they ask you which bones meet at the elbow joint and what kind of movement do they allow. At the elbow joint, the humerus and the ulna meet and they allow movement in only one plane, unlike the ball and socket joint, which is at the shoulder and allows movement on all three planes. Now, what are the some effects of heroin? Heroin, we all know, is an addictive drug. So, it injecting it can lead to AIDS. Yes, this is correct in those instances in which the same needle is being used and again, and it's unsterilized. It stimulates the nervous system. Is this correct as well? And ceasing its use causes withdrawal symptoms, just like all other types of drugs such as nicotine, tobacco, ice. Is the answer. Question number 26. Which substance is not needed for production of penicillin in this way? We all know that in modern times, penicillin is used made in fermenters. So CO2, mineral ions, oxygen, and sugar. To make penicillin, we obviously don't require, we require the basic gases, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and sugar. However, we don't need mineral ions. Question number 27. Since some young plant, it's an experiment we've done on the plants, and they say that the samples of the diseased leaves were examined using a microscope. So, which observations of the organism causing the disease show that it could be a fungus? It has a long thread-like structure. This represents the hyphae or the mycelium. Chloroplast not present, since they aren't present responsible for photosynthesis. Cell walls present. Yes, they have cell walls made up of chitin and they have a nuclei surrounded by a membrane. Yeah, so three of the options are correct. However, fungi don't contain nuclei. Question number 28. Population changes in animal plankton lag behind similar changes in plant plankton because the animals feed on the plants. Into which category does the statement fall? In this question, we just have to correctly interpret the graph. We can see that the plant plankton population is represented by dots, whereas animal plankton population is represented by a flat line. So the two populations almost linearly correlate with each other, and each rise is followed by a steep fall as well. So it is a reasonable interpretation in data. This is the correct this is the option number one. It is a restatement of the data. It is contradicted. No, it is supported by the data. So option C is correct. I think it is a reasonable interpretation of data. Now in question number 29, we can come to food chains. What is the pyramid of numbers for this food chain? Grains. As we go to the bottom represents the most amount of, this is a pyramid of numbers. So the base represents that the organism is produced in the represented the largest amount at the base. There is a large amount of grain which feeds on large amount of insects. However, there will be small amount of birds and small amount of lice which will feed owls which will feed on them. However, the lice lastly which will feed on them will be in large amounts. So the correct option should be D. In the carbon cycle, which process returns carbon to a food chain? It's the process of decomposition. Question 31. Which action will not help to reduce the spread of the malarial vector in the human population? Using antibiotics to kill the malarial parasite. sleeping under mosquito nets. All three of these options will help, however, not using antibiotics since malaria is a viral disease and antibiotics have no effect on it. Question 32, which change would lead to an increase in biodiversity in an area? Stopping fishing in an area of sea for several years. This will obviously increase the biodiversity since we'll be start allowing the food chain to flourish and more amount of consumers and predators and the whole food chain will start. Which diagram shows the product of one division of the cell by mitosis? Now you need to know that the daughter cells which will be produced will be exactly identical to it. So the correct option should be in this case D. Yeah. Oh, sorry, because I forgot to tell you that mitosis produces cell division by two, whereas meiosis produces four. So the correct option will be B. Now in question number 34, which statement is correct? Fertilization occurs at one. Haploid gametes, yeah, fertilization of hope happens at the stigma. This is correct. Number one. Question 35, which label structures are the cervix and the uterus? Cervix and the uterus. So the baby comes out down this is this uterus in which the implantation has occurred, and the pathway is known as the cervix. So this is code number two. This is number three. The day 11 should be the answer. Question 37. A gene is found at the labeled point P in a heterozygous individual, which will be found at the equivalent position labeled Q. Different allele of the same gene. This is the answer. In question 38, which row identifies this type of variation and states its cause, type of variation, and its cause? So discontinuous variation is that type of variation which is only and only caused by the genes, whereas continuous variation takes place by both the genes and the environment. In question 39,